He's a new community liaison for the San Jose Police Department. With me here on Comunidad del Valle is my friend Chris Camarillo of the San Jose Police Department. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So what does this mean, the new community liaison? I remember back when I was at Telemundo, we had someone called El Guardian. Officer Sergeant Montano was in charge of that. What's your role as a community liaison?
Well, basically, I stole a little bit of that idea. I'm hoping to somewhat resurrect El Guardian, hopefully soon. Like everything at the police department, though, it has to go through the proper channels. But ultimately, that's the goal. I came up with the idea that we need to have a Spanish-speaking face to serve the community, to liaison with the Mexican consulate. There's just a variety of things that I felt that we need to be doing for the community. Almost every large metropolitan police department in the country with the Spanish-speaking community has something in place. We didn't. Right now I'm doing it it's a pilot program, it's a collateral assignment. I still have my regular patrol duties, and all the stuff that I do in regards to this program I do either on days off or at the beginning of my shift.
And what does that mean? Does that mean when you're not giving tickets, what is it that you're doing as a liaison?
Primarily, I liaison with the Mexican consulate. I try to be there, a couple times a month in the morning, and just generally be there as a resource to people that come in. We have a large, undocumented community in San Jose, and a lot of times I think they're reluctant or afraid to speak to law enforcement because, of various things they've heard and things. And I just wanted to build that bridge and be available without them having to worry. So what better place to be than at the Mexican consulate? Just the level of comfort there is a little bit different than being out in the street and being approachable in that way.
I mean, I think even those who are here legally, even those who were born in the States, kind of have a subliminal fear of law enforcement. Why do you think that is? And I'm assuming that's your duty to try to change that image within the Spanish-speaking community.
I don't know where that comes from. One of the things that really bothered me a lot, and I've heard this for 15 years, being a police officer here in San Jose, especially when dealing with Spanish-speaking citizens, Mexican, their comments always have been to me, it's like, why do Mexican or Latin or Hispanic police officers treat other Latinos or Hispanics bad? And I don't know where that comes from. I really have not been able to put my finger on it. I don't know if it's, our culture of someone tells a story and then it gets exaggerated. I try to take a little bit of time to explain to people that don't treat anybody according to their ethnic background, the color of their skin. It's a job. Are there officers sometimes that have bad days? Absolutely. Do I have bad days sometimes? Yes. And what I explain to people is our profession is like any other profession. There's good police officers, there's not so good police officers, but that's across the board for any profession, doctors, the clergy, anything. And I think it's just taking a little bit of time to talk to people and explain that to them that kind of opens their eyes, and they don't. I try not to get them all to paint us with the same brush, so to speak.
Did you see that initially when you're standing there at the Mexican consulate, the kind of an apprehension about approaching you or asking you, and how have things changed since you took over the role?
Not really. Since my first day being at the Mexican consulate, I've just had a litany of questions and problems that I've been able to help people with. And I hope that with helping these people, it kind of changes their mentality and attitude, where then they can share that with friends and family, and then hopefully it's kind of a sweeping movement, I'm hoping, in our city with our law enforcement, where they just don't feel like they to approach a Hispanic or Spanish-speaking approach any police officer. If you have a question or concern, we don't care about your legal status in our city. That's not something we ask any victim of a crime or witness or anything like that. That never comes up. And I just really want to emphasize that to people.
Is that still a fear that maybe victims of crimes don't come forward for that fear factor?
Absolutely. And I've been told that from victims, from witnesses. It's like, well, am I going to get deported? No, absolutely not. What does happen is occasionally undocumented people commit crimes in our county. They end up going to jail. And periodically, yes, ICE comes to the jail and does deport people. And my explanation for that is, if you have somebody who's selling drugs, who's out committing gang crimes, is that somebody that you really want to be part of your community anyways? And 99% of the time, the answer is no. But in terms of just being a victim or witness, absolutely not.
And I know that before El Guardian would go to festivals and he'd be stationed there. So aside from doing security at these festivals, is that eventually what you want to do? Is be that presence there at these festivals and whatnot, where people can approach you as the liaison and not as a security force there?
Absolutely, that's the goal. Hopefully, I'm able to convince the chief that this is requires somebody to do this full time. Right now, I'm pretty busy. I usually put in 6 days a week doing one thing or another. I hope that it gets to a point where, when our staffing gets a little bit better, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be me. I've always been of the mind that's like, I want to get this going. I want to get this thing some legs and hopefully pass it on to somebody. I don't envision myself doing this for the rest of my career. I would like to get it started and then, hopefully someone else that has the same, desires and beliefs and sense of service to the community will eventually take it over. But I think it's something that we need on a permanent basis at the San Jose Police Department.
All right, Officer Chris Camarillo is with the San Jose Police Department. There is their web address for more information. Maybe if you want to join the force, you can log on and find out more about the recruiting procedures. We'll be back and talk more with Officer Camarillo when we continue. Stay with us. We're back with the new San Jose Police Community Liaison here on Comunidad del Valle. Chris Camarillo is that liaison. Talk about the patch on your shoulder and what that means to you as a Latino police officer or just as a police officer.
I was born and raised in San Jose. I didn't really like the police too much growing up. I happened to be working with somebody at the time that was really interested in law enforcement. He was a Vietnamese guy who we are still friends to this day. He wanted to apply, he wanted to go to the process, and he didn't want to do it alone, basically, and he asked me to do it with him, and I didn't want to, and took a little bit of arm twisting, so, I finally did it. 6 months later, I got a job offer to start the police academy, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. It's kind of hard to explain or put into words for me, but, I take a lot of pride in wearing these patches and wearing this badge. With everything that's been going on in the city, I did explore some other options. It just made financial sense to me to be able to take care of my 2 kids as a single dad with one income. I had to do some serious soul searching. I applied to a couple places, pretty close to leaving. I had a job offer, and it was a couple sleepless nights, and I couldn't do it. I am too much of a San Jose homeboy. I think I love this city. As bad as things have been, I really want to be part of turning it around, hopefully. I'm a firm believer that, we're going to come back to where we used to be before in terms of staffing and everything else. We have 2 excellent leaders at the top of our organization right now, which is another reason why I decided to stay as well.
2 Latinos.
Larry Esquivel, great cop, fantastic chief. Eddie Garcia, another fantastic, what we'd like to say is a cop's cop. They were both cops. They weren't really administrators.
They both wear that H pin that you're wearing there.
They do. We've chewed on the same dirt in that unit, and I'm proud to, have it.
Yeah, the H pin is a symbol of the elite SWAT team for the San Jose Police Department. I know that 3 years ago, thereabouts, there was this animosity between the immigrant community and police officers. It's kind of flipped completely around. What do you think that is, and do you think your role as a liaison, you kind of touched on this, but it's to improve that and make it even better to where it's not even an issue later?
I don't really know what the answer to why it has improved. I think that with anything, there's always room for improvement. I want to keep it going. I want people to, really have trust in us and our everyday activities, our jobs. And I always tell people that it's kind of like, how should I put it? You meet a movie star, somebody really famous, you walk away from that encounter probably forever and you remember what that was like. But for that person, he meets, thousands of people in a week. It's kind of the same for us, where I deal on a daily basis with, a couple dozen people on calls or wherever else they may be, and I tend to forget those encounters really quick. Those people don't. They always remember the encounter or the contact they had with the police officer. So I just try to end things on a positive note. Try to make people happy. I mean, of course, that's not always possible when I have somebody in handcuffs and I got to take them to jail for domestic violence or something like that. But I think it's important, just try to be positive, try to help people. And well, that's my goal, especially with the Spanish-speaking community in San Jose.
All right. Officer Chris Camarillo is, again, the community liaison for the San Jose Police Department. There is our web address for more information.